This piece is called My Christmas, My Easter. Every day that I wake up feeling okay is a great day. I don't even have to feel great for it to be a great day. I don't even have to feel good. I only have to feel okay for it to be a great day. For so long, I felt horrible every day. I never woke up, I came to. Always in a quagmire of anxiety and regret. But those were the days of alcohol abuse, and I've been gratefully free of booze now for almost 14 years. It was Christmas of '99 that I went on my last bender, and that was my Easter. But first I want to tell you about my Christmas. I grew up like most of us, with Santa Claus, Charlie Brown, baby Jesus, and the awkward spectacle of opening presents with people you can't stand. Despite these wonderful rituals, my Christmas came in the summer of my 10th year when I went into my room one day, closed my eyes, and said, "Okay, God, if you're real, please reveal yourself to me." I began to see in my mind's eye Jesus standing next to a big rock. The rock itself was like an ancient tomb, the size of a man and shaped like a heart. Not a Valentine, but a human heart, like a fist. Jesus turned and knocked on the heart, and it split apart in the middle, vertically, opening toward me like French doors. Floods of blinding light and warm water gushed forth from the cracked rock over and through me. My heart raced, my breathing got deeper and faster, tears and sweat surfaced. It was like I had crossed the finish line of a great race when, all the while, I was just lying on the bed. Now, I also became aware for the first time of profound peace, deeper than mama's boobs and bathwater, wider than fish sticks and macaroni and cheese, broader than Saturday morning cartoons. Plus, I didn't know until then what a tremendous burden of fear I had been carrying around for my first 10 years. Fear, I suppose, of my family literally killing each other. But Christ was born in my heart on that Christmas day in 1972. It was my Christmas. I was born again, as the evangelicals say. I no longer needed to work up a faith in God. I knew God. That's the gospel, the good news. Now, the bad news is that it made me a weird kid. None of my friends could relate to this. To them, I was a Jesus freak. It's all I ever wanted to talk about, along with my developing passion for classical music. Another great conversation killer for adolescents. So the highlight of my day, every day for the next 8 years until I went off to college, was not school or basketball or even girls. It was playing the piano and spending time alone in my room doing what Brother Lawrence called practicing the presence of God. In fact, had I lived in the time and place of Brother Lawrence, my family might have given me over to the medieval friars. Here, do with him as you will. We don't understand him. All he ever wants to do is hang out in his room and listen to Mahler. My spirituality became a drug. If I wasn't carried to mountaintops of bliss every day, then I wasn't right with God. And like all drugs, this one stopped working. In my early 20s, I became conscious of huge differences between my experience of Jesus and that of the evangelical consensus. For instance, what was with this never-ending ping-pong game between joy and guilt? Snippets of my challenges to fellow Christians in those days include, am I a beautiful child of God created in His image, or a wretch? Which is it? Both. Okay, but am I really not right with God because the last temptation of Christ makes me feel closer to Jesus? Why do you feel compelled to pray for me because the Beatles are more profound to me than Amy Grant? And why do I have to vote for Ronald Reagan? Isn't Jimmy Carter one of us, or is he not right with God too? These objections all went over like a dirty joke at a prayer meeting. I grew tired of being plunged into a furnace of guilt every time I tried to share with my brothers and sisters in the Lord the burning beauty within me. The music and stories I cherished, as well as my most personal expressions, my poems, songs, even the classical music I wrote, were all suspect. Even my own mother, to this day, cannot bring herself to read any of my writings or listen to any of my recordings without waxing nostalgic about the days when I was right with God. This was the beginning of my Easter, my passion. I remember standing there in church one Sunday, around the time that Pat Robertson was running for president, watching all these white middle-class zombies raising their hands and speaking in tongues, working so hard to build some kind of meaningful encounter with the divine, and I just felt empty and out of place. I stopped going to church. I began hanging out at bars instead. Jesus drank, right? And he hung out with other questionable types. So I began hanging out at strip clubs. I hitchhiked across America, not to stop at every stripper bar and billiard honky-tonk I could find, though that's what I did, but because I just felt lost. And I thought to myself, hey, if you're going to be depressed for a long time, you might as well see the sights. And over the years, I had sordid encounters with all kinds of questionable types, including prostitutes, heroin addicts, swingers, and Republicans. Christmas of '99, I almost died of alcohol poisoning. I probably should have gone to the hospital, but I was too embarrassed to call 911 for something as stupid as drinking oneself to death. Instead, I got down on my knees and begged God for mercy. Then I passed out. I came to when my heart started pumping like a racehorse. Then it stopped, and I lost consciousness. Then it began galloping again. Now, this happened several times before it calmed down and I caught my breath. I crawled over to the phone book. Yes, there were still phone books in those days. And I called the AA Central Office in the Loop. Nellie picked up the phone. By the way, she's in her 90s now and still works there. And her tone hasn't changed. When I explained my situation to her, she barked, "Get your ass to a meeting." I told her that I was having trouble walking at that moment. She responded, "Doesn't sound like you had any trouble getting to the liquor store." That was my Black Friday, and I began going to AA meetings the next day. The philosopher William James, in his book, The Varieties of Religious Experience, describes two different but equally valid types of encounters with the divine: instantaneous and gradual. My Christmas was instantaneous. My Easter was gradual. It took me 5 days from my last drink to feel human again. The winter of '99-2000 was especially brutal, as you may remember. One could look down a residential street and see camel humps every 15 feet and realize that those were rows of parked cars buried beneath 5 feet of snow. I drifted with the relentless snowflakes to an AA meeting every day for 90 days. 90 and 90, they call it. As I said, it didn't happen immediately. But by the end of those 90 days, I knew that I never wanted to drink or do drugs again. I was able to work without having to make excuses about my drinking. And I had friends like Kelly here, who to this day has never had the misfortune of knowing the old me. On Christmas of '99, Christ died in me, or at least my failed notions of Christianity, and Christ rose again. I was born again. About a year into my sobriety, I was talking on the phone with my mom, and she was decrying still how I never went to church, not even on Christmas and Easter. Funny thing is, she used to complain that church was too crowded on those days because of all the hypocrites who only went to church on Christmas and Easter. But I said to her, "Mom, every day for me is Christmas and Easter." She scoffed, and you may too, because it does sound corny. But I invite you now to reconsider your notions of Christmas and let Christ be born in you today and every day.